What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the College Sports Connection podcast, where Double A, Alex, and AJ host the Mid-American Conference Best.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the College Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, it's AJ the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
AJ, welcome back. We are now finally at the pinnacle of the MAC season, the Mid-American Conference Championship Tournament.
Yes, we are. We are in March officially. We've already seen some games outside of the MAC that have been nail biters and buzzer beaters. We've seen some smaller schools punch their tickets into the tournament already. But we have the MAC tournament starting tomorrow, right?
Starting
tomorrow, running all the way through Saturday in Cleveland, Ohio. We will be there. We're very excited about that. You head there Friday, cover the semifinals and finals, and my wife and I will be there on Saturday to cover the finals. And one thing the MAC does, and we're going to talk about this more later on, but I really appreciate is doing men's and women's the same weekend, that in the same place.
Yeah.
That's something that not every conference does, but it's so convenient and it's so great for the conference. It's so great for the programs, the fans. And playing in a great arena like Rocket Mortgage in Cleveland, or the Q or Gund Arena, whatever anybody wants to call it anymore. Changes names every 5 years, it seems like. But with the new addition they put on the facility, it looks fantastic. Sure. I'm excited to be there. I know you're excited to be there. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. You and I were in Detroit for the football championships and the Quick Lanes Bowl. And now here we are coming up to the tail season of MAC basketball, getting ready for March Madness here, starting in what? Selection Sunday is Sunday, right?
Yeah, this coming Sunday.
Yeah, so we're winding up. We're ready. It's so we're hard to believe we're at that time, but we've got a lot of great action going on in the conference this year, both men and women's. And I think we're going to start this conversation off with the women's side of things. And Toledo made history this year. We talked about this off air a little bit ago. The first time in MAC history, the men's and women's program from the same school have won the conference outright. Friend of the program, Trisha Colop, we had her on at the beginning of COVID, I think.
Yeah, towards the beginning of COVID, back in 2020, the summer of 2020, I think June.
Yeah, June. Yeah, somewhere in that time. And tell you what, we were very excited. We were sold on her and her program, and she's shown up and shelled out, and she's done everything she told us she was going to do. And let's start there. Let's start with the Rockets.
Yeah. So the Rockets, obviously, on top of the Toledo posting what was an incredible record from a year ago. You look at what they've done this year, 25-4 this year, 19-1 in conference play versus a year ago. They went 12-12 in conference play, 8-12 overall in conference play, 12-12 overall on the season. Not the kind of season Cullip was looking for. And knowing Trisha Cullip the way we came to, it was very clear to her that she knew that she wasn't satisfied with that and she wasn't moving on. It was, let's retool, let's go out, let's recruit hard. She took great advantage of the transfer portal, pulled in players from Indiana, from, I believe, Penn State had a transfer into Toledo. So just a lot of great talent coming into Toledo. And she was rewarded with that, with players who have multiple years of eligibility and an outright conference championship, moving to 19-1 again in conference play and 25-4 on the season. A massive turnaround for her in that program. Looking forward to seeing what they do in Cleveland. The next closest team, the Buffalo Bulls, 16-4. There was a 3-game difference. So Toledo not only won the conference, they won it in very, very dominant fashion. I mean, you look at what they did on this season, like some of these scores were just absolutely insane what Toledo is able to do to some of these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at some of these scores here, like we talked about, they had a couple. It was either they had a blowouts or they had a close games. There was really no in between. They beat Akron at Akron 69-66. They lost to Buffalo 79-65. Beat Akron, lost to Akron 88-77, and so on and so forth. But yeah, they're going to take on the Bobcats of Ohio, who come in 15-13. Toledo, like we mentioned, is 25-4 on the season. That game is Wednesday tomorrow at 11 o'clock on ESPN Plus. That is going to be a fun game to watch, especially being two Ohio teams. Obviously, chances are you're going to draw an Ohio team, 5 MAX teams that are from Ohio. But nevertheless, it's going to be a fun way to start the championship with a high-profile offense like Trisha Cullip and the Rockets have, playing Bobcats, who I mean, have a respectable 15-5. The MAC was tough this year all across the board, especially with the teams, because not every team goes to the tournament like we've talked about. And I didn't really realize that until like last year or a couple of years ago. Like, oh wait, that makes sense now because they used to play on campus, correct?
Yeah, so the initial rounds of the tournament would start on the on-campus sites. They had actually, it was up until just a couple of years ago. I want to say it was right before COVID. The post 2020 season, they switched it from all teams made it
Mm-hmm.
to just the top 8 teams to kind of limit the format and make things
Sure.
a little bit easier. So yeah, from 2016 through 2020 all teams played in the tournament. Top 4 seeds all received a bye to the quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
5 through 12 played on campus sites, and then they went on to Cleveland, which was really really great. Now, what was really cool, and they've switched up this format a couple times the last decade. In 2012 through 2015, the 1 and 2 seeds actually got a bye all the way to the semifinals, with
Mm-hmm.
3 and 4 playing in the quarterfinals in Cleveland, but then 5 through 12 would play the home sites, and then they would play another game in Cleveland. Then, so it just became a whole big thing. And it was really cool to kind of be a part of that and to kind of see what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I was at Toledo, I got to experience Toledo women the last time that they won the outright championship and took first place in the conference. They
Right.
actually earned that bye all the way to the semifinals in 2012. Toledo, not so great that year. It was Todd Kowalczyk's, I want to say, his 3rd year with the program, but he was in the middle of turning them around. They finished like 17 and like 16 or something like that, and made it to the semifinals, ended up losing that year in the semifinals, but it was very competitive for both Toledo programs. But it was cool to kind of be there and interact with the people from the other school and kind of introduce ourselves and be around that environment. That was my first MAC tournament. That was
Mm-hmm.
such a cool experience to kind of see the pomp and circumstance around it. The fans who showed up, obviously the Kent State and the Akron fans showed out a little bit more than some of the fans from the further away schools like the Central Michigans, the Western Michigans, things like that. But yeah, so the campus sites hosted the first round, and then everything moved to Cleveland.
Moved to Cleveland, yeah, and that's a great opportunity too to bring like a little March Madness to small campuses and small communities, the Muncies and the Toledos, the Athens, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. We're talking about Toledo and OU here. Toledo enters this matchup with a 71.2 points per game average on the season. That's 0.9 more than Ohio, who's at 70.3 per contest. The Rockets are 12 and 0 in games where they lead or they score at least 70 points. They have a prolific offense. They have shooters. They can put the ball through the net. And, being 12 and 0 when you put up 70, that's means OU's defense has to step up. And I think OU's defense is really going to be what changes the game. It's not going to be so much offense. It's going to be their defense being able to slow down UT's offense. Their defense slowing down UT's offense.
Well, what's interesting about this game, right, is Toledo went 19-1 in conference play. Their one loss was to Ohio, and that was on February 16th. Not on February 16th, January 26th, a 79-72 decision at Savage Arena. Toledo got revenge just a couple weeks later, a 76-73 decision down in Athens. This is the team who has played Toledo tough all season long. You look at some of the other scores. Some of these games are close, and then the next game it's a double-digit win for Toledo. So this is the one team who, as crazy as it is, I think Toledo should be most concerned about in this playoff for the MAC tournament is this Ohio Bobcat team who has been the only one to beat them in conference play. To go near a perfect 20-0 is no easy feat, and Ohio prevented that.
Yeah, the Bobcats are 9-3 when they put up more than 60 points. Now, they're gonna have to put up points, but their defense is also gonna have to step up. And like they did the first meeting this year, if they can step up, they can really upset Toledo, which would, I think, would have a major ripple effect through the conference and the tournament. Free throw shooting as well. The Bobcats shoot 69.9% from the line, which is 8th in the MAC. Hooks, it's Ohio's best free throw shooter, making 5.3 free throws per game while shooting 59%. So a lot of storylines in this game. I think it's going to be maybe one of the most interesting matchups of the first round because there is, they are 1-1 throughout the season. But we'll find out early tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Which, I mean, I'll be at work, you'll be at work, but I'm sure we'll have it on at some point somehow.
Sure.
And
Should be
That's
a
gonna
good
be
matchup.
No, absolutely. We go here to the other side of the bracket. Let's talk about Buffalo, number 2 seed. They're going to play the Western, number 7 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into Buffalo and Western.
So Buffalo, obviously finishing with the number 2 seed, looked really, really good all year long in MAC play. Obviously, they, 2 losses to Toledo contributed to to their only sweep of conference play. That resulted in losses, but they played a lot of opponents really close. You look at scores against schools like Kent State, where they won by 3, wins against Northern Illinois, won by 7, Eastern Michigan won by 7. This is a team who comes out and they fight, they play scrappy, they know how to play basketball, and they play people tough. But this is not a game I expect Western Michigan, frankly, to show up in. You look at some of Western's scores on the year. I mean, they lost games this season by quite a lot, multiple double-digit losses.
Yeah.
Nothing against what Western has done. I know that they're on a hard rebuild, and they've worked really hard, obviously, to finish in the top 8 to try to have a chance at the NCAA tournament. But I really don't see it happening for them. I think right now Buffalo is just playing really good basketball. I mean, you look at, again, those scores and what some of these players have done. This is a team who is not equipped to beat Buffalo in this first round.
No, absolutely. It's kind of bouncing off that there. Buffalo enters this matchup with a 74.7 points per game. That's 11.6 more points than Western Michigan, who averages 63.1. The Bulls are 12-1 in games where they put up at least 63 points. The Bulls are shooting 71.7% from the free throw line as a team, which is 5th in the MAC. We go down here to Western here. Like I said, they scored average 65.7 per game, which is fewer than Buffalo, but the Broncos are 6-0 where they put up 68 points this year or more. So it's really going to be interesting. But yeah, I think you're right. Buffalo being 22-8 on the year, Western being 16-3. Western has kind of struggled both men's and women's this year. I believe they just let their men's coach go a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
They fell on really hard times on that side. 16 wins is nothing to just shy away from. That is a fair season, but Buffalo, who's put up 22 wins on the year and is scoring, 74.7 points a game. It's a lot of points. I think if Western's going to have any shot in this game, it's going to have to be their defense stepping up, just kind of like OU and Toledo. If OU wants to win that game, their defense is going to have to step up. Same thing with Western. If they want to win this, their defense is going to have to step up and and hold Buffalo behind the 3-point line. Don't foul them. Don't let them get to the line because they can't shoot free throws, and don't let them get from beyond the arc because they can put up high numbers as we've seen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was going to say, Buffalo is 12-1 when they score at least 63 points. If I'm Western Michigan defense, you prevent them from scoring, you can figure out the offensive side. I mean, it's basketball. Very rarely do you see teams held at a very, very low number. If you hold Buffalo back from hitting that 63-point mark, Western's got a punching chance. They are 16-3 on the season, 10-10 in conference play. I don't want to count Western out entirely, but I think that right now Buffalo probably has this one zipped up.
Sure. I mean, Buffalo is on a 4-game winning streak right now, and they're finding their streak right now. They're playing well. They took down Kent State 82-64 in the last Saturday, and DeShana Fair put up a team high 28 points, and then Riley Jacobson put up 19.
Yep.
So who knows? I think it's gonna be a high scoring game though.
I think it really will be. I definitely think this could be a high scoring game. This is one I'm actually really excited for because Buffalo was an early season favorite to win the conference. Yeah. Toledo wasn't anywhere close to that. I think Ohio was another team that people were kind of projecting to compete in the conference. And now we're seeing Buffalo and Toledo ideally on a crash course to play in the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. Move on down here to the bottom left corner of the bracket. Ball State, Northern Illinois, the 4 and 5 seeds. Northern Illinois tries to extend their streak to 3 games. There's a lot of winning streaks here on this side of the bracket. As they're going to host the Cardinals in Cleveland on Wednesday. Yeah, tomorrow at 1:30. Northern Illinois did beat Ball State a couple of days ago, 77-72. This one's going to be interesting, to say the least. No matter what sport it is, when it comes to Ball State, Northern Illinois, they always play extremely well. Ball State comes in at 18-11. Northern Illinois is at 500 at 14-14. Mm-hmm. This one could be extremely interesting because, like I mentioned, football is always that was a 1 point game this year. And they always play tough. They always do. And we know the culture at NIU. Having been around some of those players and coaches from the football program, I know it from Ball State, just being an alum, how much pride they take into basketball, especially at the Nest. This is going to be a fun one to watch.
Well, what's interesting is the last time these two teams played, this was a win in favor of Northern Illinois, 77-72, and that was just a week ago.
Yeah.
That, obviously they've had a little bit of time to rest, recover, and prepare. Both of these teams have won their subsequent matchups since then, all ironically against Michigan teams. Ball State knocking off Western Michigan twice. Northern Illinois knocking off Western Michigan once and Eastern Michigan once. But both of these teams have really turned it around. This was a great battle that we were looking forward to. I really, really like the fire that Ball State brings to this. I think that, they have been doing really, really well with what they do, how they move the ball around. When they hit 71 points, they're 7-1 on the year. So this is a team that can average or has averaged almost 71 points on the season. And yeah, I really, really like what Ball State's doing. This roster is playing at a high level. Allie Becky is the leader on this team with rebounds and assists. Sydney Freeman is their leading scorer. This is a great matchup for Ball State. You go to the other side with Northern Illinois here. Janine Poison averages 12.8 points a game. She also leads their 3-point efforts. She's averaging almost three-pointers made a game, hitting 32% of her shots from deep. This is a game that is going to be back and forth. Shelby Coker is making, a lot of her free throws, 92% of her attempts from the free throw line. That's, if you're hitting your free throws, that's how you win basketball games. And she's proved that for Northern Illinois this year. This is going to be a really interesting matchup. Both of them are within a percentage point of their scoring average for the season. This one's a coin flip for me.
Absolutely. We talked about free throws there a second ago. This is a game that could have come down to free throws. Shelby Coker making 3.7 free throws per game, leading the Huskies. Northern Illinois hit 72.4% of their free throws, even though that's a high number, even being the fourth best in the MAC. But they do come into this game averaging 66.9 points per game, 21 fewer than the 69 Ball State, 2.1 points fewer than the 69 Ball State averages allows per contest. But when they do score more than 69, the Huskies are 5-3. This one's going to be fun. And like we mentioned, at 1:30 tomorrow. There's a heck of a slate tomorrow. All before 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
There's a great slate of games. You kind of look at the Ball State side of things here. Allie Becky, who leads both in rebounding assists, is grabbing 5.9 boards and dishing out 4.5 assists per game, in addition to Freeman's 10.6. This is going to be fun. I think we keep saying that, but I think it's really true when it comes to this contest, because for so many reasons. Being the 4 and 5 seed, that's a tough spot to be in, no matter who you are. That middle of the bracket, but nevertheless, this is going to be high. I think this could be actually a high scoring game, even though they'll average both under 70 points. This is a game that could come down to free throws, and chances are I'm going to bank on my free throws now before I'm going to bank on anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think free throws will be critical, especially down the stretch in a game like this where it could be a high scoring affair. Both teams averaging more than 70 points, like we mentioned. This one's going to be a good one. If you're having me pick the coin flip right now, I think I got to go Ball State, just off of record and just of what they can do. But again, who knows? This one is truly a coin flip, and it is March, so anything can happen.
And that proves every time and time again what happens in March stays in March. You never understand. It never makes any sense.
No,
it never does.
Never does, and that's why we love it. But the last one of the day, Bowling Green versus Akron, and this is which seeds are these?
These are what, 5 and 3 or 6 and 3.
6 and 3. Okay, so the 6-seeded Bowling Green Falcons are taking on the 3-seeded Akron Zips. This will be an interesting game. Robin Freilich is leading this Bowling Green team as the coach who coached under Trisha Cullop at Toledo was one of her assistants, won a title at Ashland, a D3 title at Ashland. So she has a winning pedigree. This one is going to be a lot of fun to watch. I mean, you look at what Bowling Green has done this year, and obviously 6th in the MAC, but they closed out their season with a 2-point loss to Akron with 3 games to go. But they also lost to Akron way earlier in the season, and I think that this is a much different Bowling Green team now than they were 4 weeks ago. So I genuinely believe that this Bowling Green team, if they come out and they play hot, they can surprise Akron. This is not a game that I think gets away from Bowling Green early, but I think that this is going to be one like where Jordan Dawson for Akron is going to have to kick in and dominate, and I think that this is an opportunity for her to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. The Falcons score 72.8 points per game, which is 6.6 more than Akron allows. When BG hits the 66-point mark, they're 12-9 on the year. I don't think you can let that 15-14 record fool you, because I think BG is a lot better than what the record shows. The Falcons have hit more 3-pointers than their opponents all season long, making 7.6 shots per game from deep, while holding opponents to 6.4 makes per game. When BG hits an average from the 3-point line range this season, the Falcons have 7-5. So I think in order for Akron to win this game, they're going to have to defend the perimeter and not allow BG to get those wide open threes, because it shows they're hitting 6.4% of them per game. That helps. That's a lot of points scored. And, if you allow too many threes, obviously it can be deflating to an opponent. But I think if Akron's going to have any shot, they're going to play the perimeter defense. They're going to play a strong perimeter defense and force BG to take the ball inside, or maybe even the 3-point line, or the free throw line.
Something that's interesting that I want to point out, back in November, when ESPN released their preseason conference selections for the women's side, Bowling Green was the near unanimous pick to win the MAC this year. They returned a lot of players. They had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of great things this year, and they really looked to be on the up and up, especially after last year. They had a great season last year. This looked like the team to beat this year. So it's really surprising for them to not only not have one of the top 2 seeds, but to actually have one of the bottom 3 seeds in this tournament coming in. So really interesting to see what they end up doing with Bowling Green. Again, I feel like they are a much different team from the later part of the season than they were at the beginning. I mean, they had tough losses to schools like Ohio State, George Mason, Liberty. They did beat schools like Valparaiso, Oakland, UT Martin. But this is a program that I think has an opportunity to do something special. And why not make a little bit of noise? Toledo a few years ago, back in 2017, was the 6th seed in the MAC tournament, went on to win the whole thing. Bowling Green, you're sitting at the 6th seed. No chance or no reason you guys can't go on and win the whole thing as well. I do, however, believe this will be an Akron victory in this first round. I don't see many upsets happening, except for maybe the 4 or 5 game. I don't see a lot of upsets happening in the first round for the MAC tournament.
Yeah, you're right. This is another one of those toss-ups. I think if you get BG gets hot, they're going to roll. But if Akron can play that perimeter defense, I think they win. But I'm actually going to take BG in this.
Taking BG, all right.
I am taking BG just because I like their perimeter shooting and averaging 60-some points a game, 70-some points a game, whatever that was.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm taking BG in this one.
Cool. I dig it. Now, obviously, we won't be able to give a prediction for the remaining matchups, as we don't know who the victors will be in these games. But if you had to pick a dark horse for the women's tournament, who you taking to win the whole thing? That's not a favorite. So not a Toledo and not a Buffalo.
I think Ball State has a legit shot.
Okay.
I think if they can get past NIU, I think they do have a legitimate shot of winning it. If I'm not taking a perennial favorite.
Okay.
But I think if we're taking a favorite, I think you and I are both going to take UT if we're picking favorites. But underdog, somebody who they're not talking about, I like that 5th seed. I like the Cardinals.
Okay. I'm with you there. I do like Ball State. If I'm picking an underdog and this goes against every bone in my Toledo body, I'm going to go the Falcons. Again, we've seen lots of magic from the number 6 spot for whatever reason in these MAC tournaments. And I think Bowling Green has the ability to do so. Obviously, they got some work to do to get through Akron, but I think that if they catch fire at the right time, this is a team who can pull some upsets and make some noise.
Yeah, without a doubt. So let's go over to the men's side of the bracket. This also starts tomorrow, I believe, right?
So all the women's
Women's are tomorrow,
quarterfinals are
men's are
Wednesday,
Thursday.
and then the men are Thursday.
So speaking of Toledo, we talked about this early on in the show. First time in history, the men's and women's program have outright won their conference. And that happens to be UT this year. And they are taking on the 8th seed, the Central Michigan Chippewas, a 1-8. This one, I don't see Toledo have any problem with, to be honest with you.
So I don't see Toledo having any problems with this one. I think that this is, and that's where this gets dangerous, right? Everybody wants to talk about, oh, well, they shouldn't worry about this team. They should be. That's exactly the opposite mindset. I'm sure Todd Kowalczyk is telling his guys in the locker room as they get ready to leave. They're going to leave tomorrow, from my understanding. The women have already left from Toledo, and all the other women have left already. They are in Cleveland tonight doing their shoot-arounds, doing whatever. If I'm Todd Kowalczyk and I'm in the last practice here in Toledo, I'm telling my guys, look, it doesn't matter what their record is. I don't care that they're 7-22. I don't care that they're 6-12 in the MAC. I don't care that we beat them twice. These guys are going to come in and they are going to give you everything. Yeah. So if I'm Todd Kowalczyk, I'm telling these guys, you got to be prepared. You got to play tough. You got to play smart. We don't make the NCAA tournament if we lose to these guys.
Absolutely. UT comes in winning 5 in a row while Central's lose on a 3-game losing streak. The Rockets average 81.5 points per game to Central Michigan's 65.8. Field goal percentage wise, the Rockets are at 48.5 to Central's 40.8. You look down the list here, and the matchup predictors and whatnot have 97% Toledo, which 25-6 versus 7-12. That's not really surprising, but nevertheless, the Rockets do come in here looking very good. Averaging 2.3 blocks per game. That's the only stat that, besides blocks and steals, Central leads. Everything else, Toledo is favored in. Central's 3 blocks per game and 6.4 steals per game.
Yeah.
I think this is a game where Central's defense just plays scrappy. Like, they have nothing to lose. They're at 7-22. They're not going to the tournament. This could be it for them. So might as well go out, just throw it all out there on the table if you can, and give it your best shot. You're averaging 6.4 steals per game. Grab a couple fouls here and there. Grab some steals if you can, because that's the only way you're going to stay in this ball game. And averaging almost 20 points less than your opponent, like Central is. You're going to have to play top-notch defense.
Well, and if I'm Kowalczyk, I look at my guys, Shoemate, Ryan Rolland, Milner. I tell them guys, look, the last time we played this school, I don't care what their record is. We only beat them by 2 at home.
Yeah.
A 68-66 decision in favor of Toledo on a late shot to avoid overtime. It doesn't matter that Toledo's put up, 88 plus in the 4 contests since then. You remember that heart attack you had knowing, oh my gosh, we almost just lost this game. Obviously they did. They went out and they played with a fire where they were outscoring their opponents, 15 points a game. But, their last contest, 2 of their last 4 contests, scoring 40 plus more than their opponent, which is just incredible. But yeah, I think, these guys need to be ready. They need to come in focused because they have it all on the line. They haven't been to the NCAA tournament since 1980. And they recognize that a 42-year drought that Toledo's hoping to end this year, and this would be a great way to end it by kicking off a great win against Central Michigan.
Yeah, absolutely. The odds are against you, completely against you. Ryan Rolland's averaging 19.2 points a game, 48.2% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. To Kevin Milner's 13.1 points per game, 42.3 from the field, and 77.9 from the free throw. They're just going to play scrappy defense. And that's really kind of the theme of this conference, of this tournament, both on the women's side, like we talked about, and then now the men's, just defensively, just show up and shell out and have some fun while you're at it. I mean, what can hurt, right? Nobody's expecting you to do anything, so might as well just go out with a bang.
Absolutely. No, it should be a fun one. Moving over to the 2v7 seed, we've got Kent State taking on Miami. Kent State has looked really, really good at times in conference play, and they've looked really, really bad. Obviously, Kent State on a 5-game winning streak here, Miami on a 2-game winning streak. But, looking at what Kent has done this year, they've swept the regular season champions Toledo. They split a series with Buffalo, but then they've got peculiar losses to Central Michigan. They've got a really odd loss to Northern Illinois. The Ohio loss, whatever, Ohio was a conference favorite at the beginning of the season, but Kent State is on a 12-game winning streak. And you have to wonder, as a fan and as somebody who enjoys watching what these schools are doing, you have to wonder how much more gas does Kent State really have in the tank? Can they extend that to a 15-game win streak to make it to the tournament?
Yeah, coming in with a 12-game win streak to Miami's 2. Points per game, Miami does lead that at 75.3 to Kent State's 71.2. Field goal percentages are split at 43.9. Rebounds are fairly close to Miami of Ohio's 34.8 to Kent's 36. Assists per game, 12.8 to the Redhawks, to the Flash's 12.5. Again, they come down. This is an interesting stat here too. Steals per game, 5.5 for Miami to 7.4 for Kent. Also blocks per game, 3.2 to 3.6. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than what people actually. They're both averaging over 70 points per game, but both hitting even from the field. So this is one that could be highest scoring, but very close.
Yeah, this one's going to be a lot of fun. I do expect that, you look at what Sincere Carey has done for this team, just, no pun intended, carried this team all season for Kent State. I think that he is a player that you got to watch for and really, really see what he's doing to lead this team. I'm excited for this game. I think that this could be a fun one. I think Miami, again, similar to Central, this could be it for them. They don't really have any hope for any other postseason play. No CIB or no CBI, no CIT, no NIT. So this one is one where a lot is riding on this game. Kent State has plenty to play for, obviously a MAC championship and then ultimately an NCAA tournament bid. So this one could be a lot of fun. I expect Miami to come out swinging, similar to Central against Toledo. And this one is going to be a lot of fun at 4:00 on Thursday.
Absolutely. You look at that record, 14-17. That's really not a good reflection of this team because, again, they're so much better than what the record actually shows.
Sure.
This does also shows a little parity in the MAC and on the men's side, how I hate to say weak it is, but how weak it actually was.
Yeah.
You had 3 teams that were fantastic, and then there was everybody else. So everybody else, outside of the top 3, everybody else was fighting for those other 4 positions. And those were all sub 500 teams, I believe.
Yep.
So that really just shows how dominant the top 3 in the MAC were this year. When it comes to OU, Kent, and Toledo, then there's everybody else.
Yeah. Buffalo right up there as well. Buffalo, and we'll talk about them here in a second. Buffalo made a late charge to be one of the top teams, and they're actually playing 4v5, Buffalo and Akron, in what is probably going to be the best game of the first round, if I'm being honest.
No, absolutely. No doubt about that. Akron, for some reason, this year has a great draw on both sides of the bracket, both men's and women's. Buffalo comes in at 19-10, Akron 21-9. Having a 21-9 record and being, what seed are they? The 4th seed. That just shows how tough the top 4 or 5 teams were in the conference this year.
Yeah. The top, I was looking at this a couple weeks ago. Toledo, Akron, Kent State, Buffalo could all very easily win this tournament. And I know that it's an 8-team tournament. So of course that's half the field, but these top 4 teams, even Ohio, you can throw in there as a team who could really just win this whole thing.
Sure.
But these top 4 teams are so good. And they all just, what they did is they all beat each other up all year. Toledo obviously escaped the pile as the king of the pile. But, every single one of these teams has an opportunity to go in and win this tournament. And it wouldn't surprise me if any of them won it. That's the beautiful part of it. If any of the 6 through 8 won it, I'd be a little bit more shocked. But again, it is March. But 1 through 5, any of those 5 could win it. And if you would say, Akron won this tournament, that doesn't surprise me. That just knowing what they've done this year, all these teams are quality teams for this tournament.
Yeah, Akron's averaging about 9 points less than what Buffalo's on the year. Buffalo's averaging 80.3 points compared to Akron's 71.9. Points against 72.3 to Akron 62.9. Field
Mhm.
goal percentages are pretty close, 45.7 for the Bulls, for the Zips 46 even. Rebounds per game, though, I think is where this game could be the make or break for Buffalo, averaging 42.7 rebounds per game to Akron's 35.3. I think that's going to be the biggest factor in this game, being able to get offensive and defensive rebounds.
Mhm.
Steals per game, Buffalo 7 on the dot. Akron's 5.6, blocks per game 4.6 to 3.3 in favor of the Bulls. But yeah, this is a game, another game where it comes down to a defense
Mhm.
for the Bulls, because Akron, even though they're averaging 71.1 points per game and have 21-9 record, they can still shoot the ball.
Yeah.
They're averaging 46% from the field, which is a little better than Buffalo. But yeah, this game is going to come down to rebounds. And Akron's on a 5-game win streak, Buffalo's on a 2-game losing streak.
Mhm. But again, it is March. Anything can happen. So this one, again, probably the best of the quarterfinal matchups of the MAC men's tournament. And that moves us into the last matchup of the day. Ball State taking on number 3 seed Ohio. Let you talk about this one for a minute.
Yeah, the Cardinals come into this one under 500 at 14-16, while the Bobcats out of Athens are 23-8 on the year. This one, man, it's tough. Ball State's averaging 74.6 per game. Ohio's averaging 74.3. You look down the stat list here on the year. OU is coming into this game like a 3-game losing streak. The Ball State Cardinals did win last week to make them a 1-game winning streak. But steals per game, Cardinals are averaging 6, the Bobcats 7.8. Blocks per game, they're pretty fairly close, 2.4 to 2.6. They're pretty much even at 13 apiece on the assists per game. Rebounds per game, 34.6 for the Cards, 35.6 for the Cards, 34 for the Bobcats. I mean, you go down this, the matchup predictor gives the Bobcats an 85.9% chance of winning. But I see this game being a lot closer than what the experts actually think when you look down the team stats here, because they're fairly even in just about everything outside of points per game. Points against, 76.8 to OU's 67.4. But this is a game that this could be a lot closer than what people actually think.
Well, and I think, you look at what Ball State has done this year. Sure, they're showing a 9-10 conference record, but within those 10 wins or those 9 wins, I mean, they picked up wins against Bowling Green, Eastern Michigan. They picked up a win against Toledo, Miami, Western Michigan. I mean, this is not a team who is going to take it laying down. They're going to get up and they're going to fight.
They're not going to wow anybody.
Yeah, you're not gonna be impressed by anything that they do, but if they come up and punch you in the mouth, you're gonna be like, okay, what we see you, Ball State. And I mean, they've got great playmakers all around the court. I know that there's been some calls to fire the head coach in over the course of the year. But I think, depending on what he does in this tournament with this team could make or break the rest of his time at Ball State.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at some of these losses the Cardinals had. They had a 1-point loss to Kent State. They had a 10-point loss at Akron, 6-point loss to Buffalo, 13-point loss to Toledo. Then you go down, they won a couple in a row, and they lost to OU 87-63. But they put up 93 against Toledo. 93-83, which is the most they put, or they put 91 up against BG.
Yeah.
So they're very inconsistent. They'll win 3 in a row, then lose 5. Win 2 in a row and lose 3, type of thing. But this is going to be a fun one. It's 6:30 on Thursday. Perfect timing because I'll be able to watch it. That's on ESPN Plus. You look at some of these wins, though, especially the non-conference ones that they had. They got hammered by Xavier, but they beat Indiana State, who's usually pretty good. They beat UMass, who's usually pretty good. So they put up points. They put up 80 against Western Illinois. They put up only 50 against Xavier, but I mean that's bound to happen to anybody.
Sure.
Like IU Kokomo, they put up 85. Illinois, they did lose to Illinois State though. That one does hurt for sure. And they only had a 1-game postponed and 1 game canceled this year due to COVID and whatnot. But this game, I think I said it earlier, I'll say it again. It's going to be a lot closer than what people think. Peyton Sparks, leading scorer for Ball State, is averaging 13.3 points per game, while Mark Sears, for OU is averaging 19.4. She's shooting 44.8 from the field and 91.2 from the free throw line. And for Sparks, he's 53.4 from the field and 69.8% from the free throw line. This is a game too that could come down to free throws very easily. Two offenses who can shoot the ball and who can score points. They're bound to be close. So it could come down to teams in the bonus and the double bonus trying to hit those free throws, if you will, down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is going to be a fun one. Ball State obviously has an opportunity to make some noise. Ohio struggling as of late. It'll be really, really interesting to see what ends up happening. This game could be a lot of fun. I'm excited to see it unfold and then to be there for the semifinals on Friday. Obviously, you mentioned earlier, we'll be doing some semifinal coverage on Friday. And then Saturday, you and our staff photographer, aka your wife, will be there on Saturday for the men and women's finals. So that's right. Exciting.
That's also Cleveland Beer Fest. So that just makes it even better.
Exactly. It's going to be a great weekend.
Absolutely. We're going to have a lot of fun. Like we mentioned, you'll be there Friday and Saturday. I'll be there Saturday with our photographer. We do a lot of cool things. You know, this is a different experience for us. We've never been to the MAC basketball championships. We've only done football stuff and bowl games and whatnot. So to be able to be a part of March Madness in this extent is going to be extremely fun. Who knows? Maybe we can get a pass to go to if depending on where the brackets fall out, if Toledo ends up playing in the Dayton bracket, let's try to go down there for a game or something like that. That'd be a lot of fun to do.
Sure.
I think let's talk about this too. How many bids does the MAC get in the men's side? I think they get 2.
This is a strong point of contention for me, and I hate that you brought it up, but the Mid-American Conference has not put 2 teams into the tournament since I want to say 2007, 2003. I believe it was Kent State and maybe Western or Central was the last time that they had 2 teams into the tournament. And that's been historically the problem, right? Is the MAC is often looked at as just a 1-bid league. And then you look at, let's say Toledo plays Kent State in the finals. It's a 1-point game. Let's say Toledo loses that game. 1-point shot, crazy buzzer beater to finish the game. How do you not reward a 26? At that point, it would be a 28 or a
27-7.
Yeah, 27-7 team with it some kind of an at-large. Now I know bracketology's already got it all figured out, and no, the MAC's only going to get 1 guaranteed bid, and I think that's wrong. Now the women's side, I think that if Buffalo were to win and Toledo were to lose, like in the semifinals or whatever, Toledo's got a strong enough resume this year, I believe, and a good enough record that I believe that they would make it in at 27-5. The MAC on the women's side has in recent years put multiple teams in for a couple years. We talked about that with Ricky Stokes back in 2020 and how the MAC women's side has put in multiple teams. But I think until the MAC starts, frankly, scheduling harder non-conference play and winning those non-conference games, like right now, Toledo has 0 pot 1 wins.
Yeah,
that's just the facts. Now they could have a couple, depending on how things shake out this for the tournament, they could have a couple of net 2 wins, which would boost their ranking and their seeding to up to probably an 11. But that I think that's the other side of the problem is if Toledo wins this out, they'll be 28-6, and they'll go into the tournament with a 12 or a 13 seed.
Yeah,
they'll go in highly underrated, probably win that first round game. Everybody be like, oh, they should have been rated higher, whatever. And then, probably lose in the round of 32 or, ideally, hopefully the Sweet 16. But I think the MAC only gets 1 bid once again this year because they haven't passed the eye test to the rest of the country in the non-conference play. Despite the fact that Toledo has won the Bahamas tournament, that, the MAC teams have come out and they've played very well. I think that right now only 1 MAC team gets a bid.
And I'm going to say 2, and here's why. I think with OU's win last year against Virginia, I think that puts the MAC on the map.
The MAC has won the first round game the last 3 years.
3, exactly. So let's gotta show something. So let's say UT and OU go to the finals. Those 2 teams are very competitive, and one of them has shown they can win in the tournament, being OU. And it's crazy how they haven't lost a step from last year either. They lost
Preston Hutchinson.
No, Preston.
Trey Bawley is who he is on Twitter.
He's in LA, I think, with the Clippers.
Yeah.
But they lost him. They didn't lose a step. Coach Bowles has done a fantastic job there, keeping that program relevant throughout the
Jason
conference.
Preston.
Justin Preston, there it is.
That's right.
There it is. Keeping OU at a 3 seed here behind a Toledo and a Kent State who's been playing extremely well. But if for some reason either Toledo and Kent or Toledo and OU make it to the finals, I don't think the committee or whoever the bracketology people, whoever they call themselves now, I don't think they leave the 2 or 3 seed out of the MAC out of the tournament. I really think we get 2 teams. Now, granted, if one of them gets blown out, then that's it.
Sure.
If it's a blowout in the second round, then that really hurts. But if the 1-2 or a 1-3 make it to the finals, I think both teams get in. 2 teams, which would be enormous for the conference.
So I think it'd be huge for the conference as well. I don't know. I'm very, very hopeful that the MAC can get more teams in. They deserve it. And I think, frankly, this is an opportunity for the MAC to have a genuine shot. I mean, this is legitimately an opportunity for them to show out, do what they need to do. I think what it's going to take right now for the MAC to get multiple bids is doing what Kent State did back in 2002, and they made it to the Elite Eight. That was a team, by the way, that had Antonio Gates on it.
Right. People forget that.
So that was, that's the highest they've ever been. However they do it, I think the MAC has to, again, start scheduling bigger teams, has to do this more consistently. In 2002, Kent State was the only team to qualify as the auto qualifier. And I think that's the frustrating part, that there's plenty of talk that every single year there's not a lot of respect.
No.
And, I think that comes to the other part of it too. Like, you look last year, Toledo was the conference champion, lost in the semis to Ohio, who went on to the NCAA tournament and won in that first round. Toledo goes and lays an egg against Richmond in the NIT tournament. So does Buffalo. So it's, the other part of it is you have to go and you have to win those lesser tournaments. I know there's still a lot of pomp and circumstance and things like that, but I think that you have to have those teams go and win those tournaments. And that's why the MAC women's side has started to become respected. Toledo won the WNIT back in 2011. You started seeing shortly after the MAC receiving multiple bids on the women's side.
Sure.
So I think that's going to be part of it as well. They've got to win those other tournaments, those big national tournaments, and they have to do it in convincing fashion.
Sure. And, we talked about on the women's side too, there's so much consistency on that side of the conference. Not so much when it comes to the men. As long as the men's side is consistent and the top teams do win out, and we have a 1 versus 2 or a 1 versus 3 in the championship, that could change everything. And, they may not, for some reason, we may not get both or 2 teams in, but we could have at least 2 in the NIT high seeds. Whoever the 2 and 3, the 1, 2, or 3 could be a high seed in the NIT very easily, which is still respectable.
Yeah, no, I think so. It's interesting to see. Obviously, we hope that we see more in the future with the MAC becoming a more than one bid league, and I hope that can return to form at some point. It's been a long time coming. The MAC deserves that. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. This weekend's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for all these squads. I'm excited to go do coverage, and this is going to be a lot of fun for us and for the teams who are vying for a conference and an NCAA tournament bid.
Yeah, absolutely, because that's on both sides. Both men and women fighting for tournament bids. So there's a lot at stake here. Not only winning a MAC championship, but also, like you said, getting that playoff or that tournament bid, which could be huge for any program. Like we saw last year with OU beating the defending national champions in Virginia, and they did it pretty convincingly too, didn't they?
Yeah.
So
it was. Let's look. I can look that up really quick.
Well, we had that clubhouse conversation with Coach Bowles like a week or 2 before the tournament. you can just tell just in that brief conversation with him, he was ready to go. He coached at a program like Ohio State where he'd been in the tournament year in and year out with Thad Matta. So he knew what the tournament was. He knew what it meant. And being an OU guy like he is, it meant a little more to him, and he took advantage of it and had a stellar team. They were no slouch. I think everybody, we had sent tweets out about it, how OU was the team to watch and how they could upset number one. And they did, and they didn't disappoint. I mean,
well, that was the thing, right? You remember we didn't have the tournament, the 2020 season, because of COVID.
No. Yep.
Virginia had won the 2019 tournament.
2019, yeah.
So they were the defending champs at
two-year defending champs. Look at that. So it was fun. That was fun to watch. And I think here we're set up for a lot of good basketball in this tournament. There's a lot of good storylines, to say the least, and we're excited to cover those on Thursday and Friday and Saturday in Cleveland. Be interactive with us on social media like you always are. We'll be active on Twitter, and I believe like what we did during the bowl game and the MAC championship in football is we went live on Twitch. Here we'll be doing it in between every quarter probably. It'll be a little easier for us being in a dome or a smaller arena rather.
Yep,
to get around. So we'll be able to do some fun stuff there. Like, so I've been to the Cube many times for games and never for press. So I'm sure we'll get some cool behind the scenes access and check out what goes on in the house that LeBron built. So nevertheless, it's gonna be a lot of fun. But yeah, make sure to stay interactive with us on social media that this weekend. I mean, we'll both be on Twitter, both of our accounts, College Sports Pod, and then our Sidelines Network as well, which you do more on that than I do. I need to get better at that. But nevertheless, we've had a lot of fun interactions here as of late, leading up to the tournament, answering questions, having interviews with people. We did take a little break. Life got busy. We've been on the road traveling and whatnot. But nevertheless, we're back previewing the tournament, and then hopefully we're celebrating our next show. Hopefully we're celebrating a 2-bid MAC conference. We can talk about that and go from there. Whether it's UT, OU, Buffalo, even any one of the top 4 seeds in both sides, men and women's, have an opportunity to make it to the tournament, and we're excited to cover that. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But that's all I've got.
Yeah, that works for me. Looking forward to the tournament this weekend, seeing both the men and women go at it, trying to again qualify for the NCAA tournament. Should be a great time. Looking forward to being in Cleveland. If that's all you've got, that's all I've got. Guys, keep following us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Check out our website. We're going to be posting more content on there. Got a few things in the works that we're going to be updating the website with, so you'll want to check that out as well. And we will have an announcement probably in the next couple of weeks for you guys, something that we're going to be bringing you guys in on. So stay tuned for that. We won't say it just yet. We're still working out the details, but something that we can get you guys interacted on and bring you guys and get your thoughts and opinions on. But yeah, AJ, if that's all you've got.
Yeah, I am set. I'm ready for Cleveland.
Cool. Let's do it. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
See you.